local, late breaking. This is WTVA News at 10.
The sound of massive explosions and shots being fired could be heard near the Tupelo airport today. We'll tell you what happened. Plus, James Meredith speaks on how he really feels about race-related incidents that have occurred at Ole Miss. We will bring you details on that story as well. Good evening and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Sonia Walls. We begin tonight with the latest developments on the crisis in Ukraine. It is now turning into a testy showdown between the U.S. and Russia. In the last few hours, President Obama spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin by phone. And tonight, the White House is warning the Kremlin against what it calls the continued violation of international law. NBC's Bill Neely reports.
Russian boots on the ground in Ukraine. They're hiding their identities, their uniforms aren't marked, but they're in Crimea to protect Russia's interests. They have a naval base here manned by thousands, but many are now off base and on the streets right behind the Russian-speaking majority here. And there may be more, many more on the way. Russia's parliament voted to approve the use of a Russian force in Ukraine. President Putin asked for it. He got it unanimously. He called the situation in Ukraine extraordinary, with Russian lives under threat. Not long after the vote, in the biggest pro-Russian city in Ukraine, Kharkiv, chaos. Dozens were injured as police battled crowds who raised the Russian flag on the regional government building. These protests repeated in other cities in Ukraine's east, where many areas are now slipping out of the control of these men. Ukraine's new government, unelected, untested, and in a crisis. We won't give in to Russian provocation, says the Prime Minister. Exactly what he can do isn't clear. He can't stop this. Russia, they chant. On Crimea's streets, they are jubilant. Russian troops are here. They want to see more.
To protect us.
You feel the Russian troops are here to protect you?
They're here to protect us.
Because we are Russians. We are Russians.
All eyes are on the military airport, where Russian planes, up to a dozen, delivered troops and equipment overnight. Crimea now tense, waiting to see if more, many more Russian troops join these men.
All right, that was Bill Neely reporting. Happening today, if you drove by the Tupelo airport this afternoon, you may have heard some explosions and the sound of gunfire. Sounds pretty scary, but there's nothing to worry about. It was only emergency training for the bomb squad and also a SWAT team. WTVA's Tyler Hill explains how this prepares officers for some real-life scenarios.
It's not to be taken lightly. Criminals attack an airport, passengers held hostage, so the SWAT team makes the move. Now, the footage you just saw, it's staged. No one actually attacked the Tupelo Regional Airport. Instead, it's an emergency training seminar for the Tupelo Police and Fire Departments, as well as the airport itself.
We had bombs going off, hostages, guns, SWAT team, and in all the excitement, we're going to take away a lot from this.
Every 3 years, the Federal Aviation Administration requires the airport to conduct a training. This year, however, they added some extra touches.
There's a lot more action and there's a lot more moving parts in this particular situation.
This year's scenario, 2 criminals board a plane in Greenville, planning to meet 3 more in the Tupelo airport. When authorities find out, they counter them in the terminal.
Oh, I think it was an outstanding opportunity to have my team see some things that we haven't necessarily encountered.
Which he says includes identifying criminals on boarded planes and working with live victims.
It helps keep us sharp and gives us a chance to do more things, that we haven't done before.
Other training phases included the bomb squad, TSA screening, and a hostage situation on an airplane.
I thought it was a real learning experience for all of us to see what possibly could happen.
The victims were made of Itawamba Community College nursing students like Malcolm Stone, who is in the plane scenario.
I thought, it might have been time for me to go meet the Lord or something. I didn't know what it was going to be. I knew it was fake, but it seemed very real, though.
And that's what officials were gunning for, a training that seemed as lifelike as possible.
Nothing's ever perfect, so well, after every scenario, we would debrief and point out what was wrong, what could be fixed, what was great.
The training lasted about 2 hours. In Tupelo, Tyler Hill, WTVA News.
And officials say it took about 6 months to plan this training seminar. The airport will host it once again in 2017. And you know what? It is a good thing that the bomb squad is participating in these training events because of something that happened earlier today. There was a bomb threat in Tupelo. However, thankfully, it was a false alarm. So if you drove by the Walmart on West Main Street tonight, you may have seen a lot of commotion. That is because there was a suspicious package in the parking lot. A Samaritan called authorities to report the package, and Tupelo police tell WTVA that proper protocol was performed. The package was x-rayed and it was considered not dangerous. In other news tonight, memorial services were held today for former Mississippi State Senator George E. Guerrieri. The funeral mass was held in South Haven with burial in Cleveland. Guerrieri was a Democrat who represented DeSoto County in the state legislature from 1980 until 1992. He was a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel. Guerrieri was 86 years old. James Meredith spoke at a Black History program at Lumberton High School where he commented on Ole Miss's recent issues with race. 3 freshmen from Georgia were involved in tampering with the Meredith statue back in earlier February. Now, Meredith, who integrated the school in 1962, says it was foolish for anyone to leave a noose and a Confederate emblem on a statue of him. He says the action should not, however, deter Black students from attending Ole Miss. And do you remember Carol the elephant? Well, she's the elephant with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus shot several months ago. Well, Carol has recovered, and today Tupelo Mayor Jason Shelton presented this elephant-sized superhero cape at the Monster Jam show at the Bancorp South Arena. Now, the mayor wants supporters to sign the cape. You see some signatures there, and because she is returning to the All-America City in April. By the way, no one was ever arrested for shooting Carol the elephant. Robots and water don't sound like a good mix, but today they were. 10 schools from Mississippi and Alabama participated in the Sea Perch South Underwater Robotics Competition. It was held in Starkville. Now, the students had to create a robot that could do certain tasks while underwater. So they used a lot of trial and error to get this to work and had to protect their robot's motors by covering them in wax. Students say this experience gives them skills they can carry with them into the future.
There's a field for everybody in engineering, and it can be a jumping place. You can go from engineering to another major that you're interested in.
The top 4 teams will go on to the national competition being held in Hattiesburg in May, and they will compete against 500 other teams from across the country. California, you may have heard, is experiencing some extreme weather that has rescue personnel and homeowners on alert for a 3rd straight day. Rescue crews were dispatched onto the Los Angeles River today, overwhelmed by all of the rain and also reports of people caught off guard in the potentially deadly current. The storm brings a tornado warning for many neighborhoods that are under mandatory evacuation orders because of possible mudslides. Now, the mud is flowing from hillsides that burned in a 1,900-acre fire back in January. City officials explain why it is so important to take this evacuation call seriously.
The problem we have, or the situation we deal with, is that while we have these lulls in the sense of people maybe thinking it's over, it's past, that's not true. We do expect more rain today.
Many homeowners have stayed despite the warning and are working to clear mud to make room for more that is expected to come. Well, we experienced no rain in Tupelo, but instead we had a beautiful Saturday. Let's turn things over to meteorologist John DeLusick for a first look at the Weather Authority forecast. Beautiful outside today.
Sonia, all I have to say is bah, bah. That's March coming in like a lamb right there, you know. Indeed. Hopefully it doesn't go out like a lion. My goodness, as Sonia said, a beautiful start to our March 1st. We're dry out there right now across the area. We're looking at mostly clear to partly cloudy skies. We do have, however, some cloud cover off to our north and west that's starting to thicken up. Already getting some clouds down into North Mississippi, but the thicker stuff is well off to our north, and plenty of snowfall and plenty of freezing rain and sleet and all that mix. Look at the temperatures way up north. 12 in Kansas City, 4 in Russell, 13 in Wichita, 31 degrees in Springfield. We're in the 50s and 60s in our area. As a matter of fact, here's a close-up look at those 50s and 60s. Very warm for this time of year, for this time of evening. And it's going to stay mild for another maybe 18 hours, and then things change. Indeed, we do have a big-time cold front, that one I showed you off to our north, headed our way. Temperatures for the next several hours staying pretty steady, mostly in the lower to middle 50s. More details about this first day of March, Lamb. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. Now back to Sonia.
All right, thanks, John. In other news making headlines tonight, Mexican authorities say they killed the leader of a notorious Knights Templar cartel after a shootout with federal police. The secretary for the National Security Council said the shootout happened on a highway in western Mexico after suspects began firing at federal police. Francisco Nunez has been identified among the dead. Nunez was believed to have been in charge of drug trafficking as well as extorting local businessmen and farmers in the area. Now to Pakistan, a dozen soldiers killed and about a dozen more wounded when 3 bombs exploded near a polio vaccination team. The funerals for some of the officers killed in the blast were held earlier today. Attacks on polio vaccination workers are common in Pakistan. Militants accuse the workers of being spies or part of a plot to sterilize Muslims. One militant leader said that he'd only allow vaccinations in the area he runs if the U.S. puts an end to drone strikes. The North Mississippi High School basketball championships continue today. Andy Lee will have the highlights of that game plus a whole lot more. And what starts out as an icy drive in Denver ends in this disaster for many motorists. We'll bring you the story and much more after the break. Icy roads in Colorado have led to some multiple car crashes like this one, and in this one there was one fatality. This morning up to 45 cars were involved in two pileups on I-25 in Denver after heavy snow made the roads dangerous. Traffic was stopped for many hours as emergency personnel worked to clear the totaled vehicles. 20 people were sent to hospitals and Denver transit buses dispatched to transport others that were not injured. The Department of Transportation says that fluctuating temperatures made the roads icy and that crews would be working to clear them all out.
And once again, a very nice start to March. Again, March came in like a lamb. Will it go out like a lion? Your guess is as good as mine. That's 31 days away. But for now, we are going to be dealing with some warm